Good morning to all. Before I start, let me thank the Executive Committee of Global Young Academy for the invitation to participate in this international conference as Vice Chair of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. As the own name says, the IPCC is an intergovernmental panel with 195 member governments, was established in 1988 with the role to assess in a complete, transparent, open and objective way the scientific, technical and socio-economic information relevant to all aspects of climate change. The physical basis of climate change, impacts, adaptation and vulnerabilities, and mitigation of climate change. So the IPCC does not do research. It does this global assessment of the global literature. The sixth assessment cycle of the IPCC started in 2015 and is planned to be completed in 2022 with the approval of a synthesis report that integrates the findings of the three working groups of the IPCC. As in all other areas, the pandemic is disrupting the work of the scientific community. The IPCC authors who volunteer their time and expertise to work on the IPCC assessment, as well as expert reviewers and government representatives, are having to cope like many other people who is working from home, changes to their day jobs, caring for family and loved ones. The pandemic is also delaying the preparation of scientific research and its publication in scientific journals, which are the subject of the IPCC assessment. The pandemic is also damaging the continuity of climate monitoring through, for instance, reduced airplane atmospheric measurements, lack of maintenance and calibration of automatic systems, reduced inflow of data, and delays in field work in remote regions. Many people ask me if there will be an impact on global warming from the pandemic. The issue is that the sharp decline in CO2 emissions is temporary, mostly driven by reductions in road transport, shipping and aviation, industrial activity, and consumption. Depending on the duration of travel restrictions in 2020, it's currently estimated that this could lead to a 4 to 7% reduction in the annual CO2 emissions in 2020 compared to 2019. This reduction is too small compared to the total amount of emissions to have an effect on the increasing trend in atmospheric CO2. If CO2 emissions decline year after year, it would still take time, possibly decades, to detect a slowdown of global warming. By contrast, the temporary reduction in emissions of some short-lived climate forces has had almost immediate benefits for air quality. But as soon as traffic and industrial activities start again, with the same infrastructure, these emissions will increase again and result in poorer air quality. However, even if temporarily, people will have experienced the benefits of improved air quality, which can be achieved together with climate action. The brutal and temporary drop in emissions is radically different from a gradual, chosen and implemented low-carbon transition. The temporary drop is marginal in the trajectory towards carbon neutrality. It's entirely a result of restrictions to travel and consumption. It is not sustainable, and its social and economic side effects are extremely negative. Rebound effects have happened in the past following such crises, leading to more cumulative CO2 emissions over several years. The recent special report on 1.5 degrees Celsius prepared by the IPCC in response to the invitation from the Climate Change Convention for the IPCC to prepare a report on the impacts of global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and related global greenhouse gas emissions pathways estimates that human activities have so far caused approximately 1 degree Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and that anthropogenic global warming is increasing 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade due to past and ongoing emissions. One important finding in this report is that warming from anthropogenic emissions from the pre-industrial period to the present will persist for centuries to millennia, but these emissions alone are unlikely to cause global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius. So, there is a window for action to limit global warming to 1.5 until the end of this century, but IPCC notes that unprecedented changes in all areas of society are required. In model pathways that limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, global net anthropogenic CO2 emissions declined by about 45% from 2010 levels by 2030, reaching net zero around 2050, involving different portfolios of mitigation measures that face different implementation challenges and potential synergies and trade-offs with sustainable development. Rapid and far-reaching transitions in energy, land, urban and infrastructure, including transport and buildings, and industrial systems would be required. Limiting the risks from global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius in the context of sustainable development and poverty eradication implies system transitions that can be enabled by an increase in adaptation and mitigation investments, policy instruments, the acceleration of technological innovation, and behavioral changes. Social justice and equity are core aspects of climate-resilient development pathways that aim to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, as they address challenges and inevitable trade-offs, widen opportunities, and ensure that options, visions, and values are deliberated between and within countries and communities without making the poor and disadvantaged worse off. To finalize, it is important that maintaining global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, while pursuing to limit it to 1 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, which is one of the aims of the Paris Agreement, have robust synergies with several sustainable development goals, the SDGs, including SDG 3, health, SDG 7, energy, SDG 11, cities and communities, SDG 12, responsible production and consumption, and SDG 14, oceans. I hope that this short talk stimulates all of you to get to know the work of the IPCC more profoundly and how each one of you can contribute to the work of the IPCC, in particular in the review process of draft reports or as contributing authors. Thank you so much.